when you allow someone else to control your emotional thermostat, you hand over the keys to your happiness. And the hard truth is, no one will ever protect your heart the way you should protect it yourself. Every time you rely on someone else to make you feel loved, valued, or worthy, you create a chain around your soul, a chain that tightens a little more every time they disappoint you, every time they withdraw, every time they simply act like human beings, imperfect, distracted, self-centered. Today, it's time to break those chains. Today, it's time to take back your emotional freedom. Because emotional dependence is the silent thief of your strength. It steals your confidence. It robs your peace. It makes you beg for scraps of love instead of standing tall and demanding respect simply by the way you carry yourself. You were not born to orbit around someone else's sun. You are the sun. You are the source. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you stop bleeding emotionally for people who can never fill you the way you can fill yourself. When you tie your emotions to how others treat you, you give away control over your own happiness. Emotional dependence feels natural at first. You connect with someone, you value their opinion, you enjoy their affection, and slowly, without noticing, you start to rely on it. Their approval becomes your reassurance. Their attention becomes your comfort. Their affection becomes your validation. The problem is people are unpredictable. They have their own struggles, distractions, and inconsistencies. Depending on their attention or validation to feel good about yourself is like building your house on sand. The foundation shifts constantly, and so does your self-esteem. Every compliment lifts you. Every criticism crushes you. Every text makes you feel seen. Every moment of silence makes you feel invisible. You live in a cycle where your emotional highs and lows are determined by forces completely outside your control. Instead of being the creator of your own joy, you become a passive recipient, waiting for others to deliver it. And they never can, at least not consistently. No human being can meet all your emotional needs all the time. When you expect them to, you set yourself up for deep and recurring disappointment. Emotional dependence also creates a silent pressure in relationships. When you need someone to constantly reassure you, love you, validate you, you unknowingly put a burden on them they were never meant to carry. Relationships start feeling heavy instead of light. Conversations become filled with unspoken expectations. Small delays in responses are taken personally. Minor disagreements feel like major betrayals because the stakes feel so high when you make another person responsible for your emotional stability. You start to fear losing them at all costs. You tolerate mistreatment. You lower your standards. You accept less than you deserve because the thought of being without their attention feels unbearable. Over time, this dependency doesn't just damage relationships, it damages your self-image. You stop seeing yourself through your own eyes and start seeing yourself through theirs. If they love you today, you are lovable. If they criticize you tomorrow, you are worthless. You dance to the rhythm of their moods, and in doing so, you forget the sound of your own voice. You lose sight of your own strengths, your own values, your own beauty, because you are too busy seeking permission to feel good about yourself. His emotional dependence often stems from childhood wounds or early experiences where love was conditional. Somewhere along the way, you learned that your worth was tied to how others treated you. You learned that love had to be earned, approval had to be chased, validation had to be requested. And now, as an adult, you continue that pattern unconsciously, looking to others to give you what you were always meant to give yourself. The pain of this dependency is profound because it attacks your very core. It makes you question your significance every time someone withdraws. It makes you feel unworthy every time someone is cold or distracted. It makes you desperate for reassurance because you have not yet built the kind of self-love that can stand independent of anyone's approval. You don't just become emotionally dependent overnight. It's a gradual process. A small reliance here, a need for validation there, a growing fear of abandonment over time until one day you realize that your mood, your confidence, your dreams are no longer your own. They are puppeted by the people around you. And that realization, as painful as it is, can become the catalyst for change. Because the truth is, you are not meant to be a puppet to anyone's attention or affection. You are meant to be the master of your own emotional world. You are meant to find validation within so that love from others becomes a beautiful bonus, not a desperate necessity. When you are emotionally dependent on others, you start to sacrifice the most important parts of yourself just to maintain their presence in your life. You bend your values to match theirs. You silence your own needs to avoid conflict. You accept treatment that goes against your inner sense of worth because the fear of being alone feels heavier than the pain of being mistreated. In trying to keep others close, you lose the closeness you once had with yourself. Your dreams, once bright and alive, start to dim because you choose paths that please others instead of those that fulfill your soul. You abandon your own standards, your own voice, your own sense of identity, and eventually you look in the mirror and barely recognize who you have become. The cost of emotional dependence is not just a few hurt feelings here and there. It's a slow erosion of your spirit. It's a quiet surrender of your potential. Every time you ignore your intuition to accommodate someone else, a piece of you fades. Every time you tolerate disrespect to avoid being alone, your boundaries blur. Every time you let someone's mood dictate your self-worth, you hand over another slice of your personal power. These moments individually may seem small, but stacked over months and years, they turn into a heavy weight that holds you back from the life you are meant to live. Living for the approval or affection of others keeps you trapped in survival mode. You are constantly scanning for signs that you are good enough. You are constantly adjusting yourself to avoid disapproval. Instead of thriving, you are merely surviving, trying to keep emotional peace at any cost. But peace bought at the price of self-betrayal is not real peace. It is a fragile illusion that shatters the moment someone withdraws their attention or changes their behavior. When you depend on others to validate your existence, you give them the power to destroy you whenever they choose. The more you lose yourself to emotional dependence, the more empty and restless you feel inside. Because deep down, you know you were made for more than begging for crumbs of attention. You know you were made to walk with strength, to love freely without fear, to stand tall in your own skin. But dependence keeps you stuck in relationships that drain you rather than elevate you. It convinces you that your worth is negotiable, that you must earn love by being perfect, pleasing, accommodating. It blinds you to the truth that you are inherently worthy, even when you stand alone. The tragedy is that emotional dependence often disguises itself as love. You tell yourself that needing someone to complete you is romantic. You believe that sacrificing your needs for theirs is noble. You think that your anxiety when they pull away is proof of how deeply you care. But true love doesn't require the death of your identity. True love doesn't demand that you silence your dreams. True love enhances your life, not shrinks it. Emotional dependence is not love. It's fear dressed up as devotion. It is the fear of abandonment, the fear of inadequacy, the fear of facing yourself without the distraction of another's approval. Breaking free from emotional dependence requires brutal honesty with yourself. You have to admit where you have compromised your integrity just to keep someone close. You have to face the ways you have abandoned your own heart trying to hold on to theirs. You have to recognize that no relationship is worth the price of your soul. The pain of facing these truths can be intense, but it is also the path to reclaiming your freedom. When you stop depending on others to define your worth, you stop living in fear of their departure. You no longer have to twist yourself into shapes to fit into their lives. You can finally begin to build a life that feels true to you, not built on the fragile foundation of other people's approval. Relying on external validation to feel good about yourself is like standing in front of a mirror that changes shape every few minutes. One moment you feel confident because someone compliments you, and the next moment you feel insecure because someone criticizes you. Your self-esteem rises and falls based on the unpredictable opinions and reactions of others. Living this way is exhausting because you are constantly seeking approval, constantly chasing recognition, and constantly doubting yourself when it doesn't come. True freedom begins the moment you stop looking outward for validation and start looking inward. When you become the source of your own validation, you take back the power you have unknowingly given away to everyone around you. Self-sourced validation means you are no longer dependent on compliments to feel worthy. You are no longer devastated by criticism. You do not need applause to believe you are enough. You validate yourself by recognizing your own worth, celebrating your own efforts, and standing firmly in your own truth, even when no one else notices. You stop asking others, am I good enough? And start telling yourself, I am enough exactly as I am. This shift is not about arrogance or ignoring feedback. It's about building a foundation inside yourself so strong that external opinions can no longer shake it. When you practice self-validation, you begin to see your own achievements differently. Instead of achieving to impress others, you achieve because it fulfills you. Instead of waiting for someone else to say, you're doing great, you tell yourself, I am proud of my progress. Every step forward becomes meaningful, not because others notice it, but because you notice it. You celebrate small wins, you acknowledge your own growth, you honor your own efforts, even when nobody is clapping for you. This inner celebration strengthens your resilience and builds an unbreakable confidence that no amount of external rejection can destroy. Building self-sourced validation requires changing the way you talk to yourself. It means replacing harsh self-criticism with encouragement. It means catching yourself when you seek approval and redirecting that energy inward. It means learning to sit with discomfort when others disapprove and reminding yourself that your worth is not up for debate. It is a daily practice of being your own biggest supporter rather than your own worst enemy. You must become the voice inside your head that says, keep going when others fall silent. You must become the hand on your back, pushing you forward when no one else sees your effort. Relying on yourself for validation doesn't mean you stop caring about people or their opinions. It means you put them in their rightful place. You appreciate encouragement, but do not depend on it. You listen to constructive feedback without letting it define you. You value relationships, but do not allow them to determine your self-esteem. You become anchored in your own identity, rooted so deeply in your own worth that storms of criticism or waves of praise cannot uproot you. This is the kind of strength that makes you magnetic, not desperate. People are drawn to those who know who they are and don't need constant reassurance to believe in themselves. The moment you stop needing external validation is the moment you set yourself free. You free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of highs and lows dictated by others. You free yourself from chasing approval that is fleeting and often conditional. OL. You free yourself from the exhausting need to perform for acceptance. You begin to live for yourself, not for applause. You pursue your passions because they light you up, not because they earn you admiration. You show up authentically, even if it's unpopular, even if it's misunderstood, because you are no longer living to be liked. You are living to be real. Self-preoccupation transforms the way you approach life. You no longer hesitate to take risks because you are not afraid of failure diminishing your worth. You no longer stay silent to avoid disapproval because you trust your voice. You no longer settle for less because you know what you deserve. You become unshakable, not because life gets easier, but because you finally understand that nothing and no one has the power to define you but yourself. Breaking free from emotional dependency demands a deep and intentional reconnection with yourself. For too long, your focus has been outward, seeking approval, chasing affection, adjusting to fit into other people's expectations. In doing so, you drift further and further away from your own inner voice. To reclaim your strength, you have to turn inward. You have to rebuild the relationship with yourself. That dependency has eroded. This begins by getting honest about your needs, your desires, your values. It means listening carefully to the parts of yourself that you have ignored or silenced just to maintain harmony with others. Reconnection is not about isolation. It's about returning to the truth of who you are without the noise of everyone else's opinions clouding your mind. Setting emotional boundaries is another essential step in breaking the cycle of dependency. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are the lines you draw to protect your emotional well-being. Without boundaries, you give others unlimited access to your heart, your mind, your energy. You allow their moods to dictate your own. You let their problems become your burdens. You accept behavior that chips away at your self-respect. When you set healthy emotional boundaries, you are not being selfish. You are being responsible for your own peace. You decide what you will tolerate and what you won't. You choose to protect your energy from being drained by others' chaos. You start to prioritize your own feelings without feeling guilty about it. Learning to enjoy solitude is another powerful tool to break emotional dependence. Many people fear being alone because they associate solitude with loneliness, rejection, or insignificance. But solitude, when embraced intentionally, is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. It is in solitude that you rediscover your passions without external influence. It is in solitude that you hear your own thoughts clearly. It is in solitude that you realize you are whole, even without constant connection to others. Choosing solitude is not a statement of bitterness or withdrawal from the world. It is an act of self-love. It is the space where you can heal, grow, and nurture a deep sense of inner fulfillment that no one else can provide. When you reconnect with yourself, you start to notice how much of your previous anxiety and emotional instability came from abandoning your own needs for the sake of others. You realize that the emptiness you tried to fill with external validation was a call to turn inward, not outward. You begin to see that true happiness was never about getting everyone to love you. It was about learning to love yourself. Every small step you take to honor your own feelings, to trust your own instincts, to prioritize your own dreams, strengthens your independence. Emotional independence is not about closing your heart off to others. It's about opening your heart to yourself first. As you set emotional boundaries and practice solitude, you also develop a new kind of confidence. You stop fearing disapproval because you are no longer basing your worth on someone else's opinions. You stop chasing relationships that deplete you because you would rather be alone with your own peace than entangled in chaos. You stop tolerating mistreatment because you understand that protecting your energy is not optional, it's necessary. You become more selective about who you allow into your life because you know your heart is valuable and not everyone deserves access to it. This journey requires courage. It requires facing the discomfort of saying no, of disappointing others, of standing firm in your truth even when it means walking alone. It requires resisting the urge to run back to familiar but unhealthy patterns when loneliness creeps in. It requires trusting that in time the loneliness will transform into strength, the discomfort will birth growth, and the solitude will reveal a deeper joy than you've ever experienced. It's not an easy path, but it's a path that leads to freedom. The kind of freedom where your happiness is no longer at the mercy of other people's actions. The more you practice reconnecting with yourself, setting boundaries, and embracing solitude, the more you anchor yourself in a life that is truly yours. The more you depend emotionally on others, the more you hand over the steering wheel of your happiness to forces outside your control. You sit back and hope that someone will treat you right, that someone will affirm your worth, that someone will fill the emptiness inside you. But as long as your emotional stability is in someone else's hands, you will always be vulnerable to disappointment. Building your own emotional stability is not about becoming cold or detached. It is about becoming It means developing the strength within yourself to stay calm, centered, and resilient no matter what is happening around you. It means no longer allowing external circumstances to dictate your internal state. Emotional stability is what anchors you when life gets turbulent, what keeps you standing tall when others try to shake you. Building emotional stability begins with accepting that not everything will go your way. People will sometimes misunderstand you, hurt you, or leave you without warning. Life will sometimes throw curveballs you didn't see coming. Emotional stability doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means you are not destroyed by it. You allow yourself to feel disappointment, sadness, anger, but you don't let those emotions uproot you. You don't spiral into despair every time someone disapproves of you. You don't crumble when plans fall apart. You don't base your peace on whether people stay or leave. Instead, you develop an unshakable core that remains intact regardless of the storms outside. One of the most important ways to build emotional stability is to develop